Hey guys, Mr. BXRP here, and welcome back. Today is July 9th of 2020, and today's video is going to be a little bit different. I am not going to go into any news or anything else about any digital assets. This is more of an informational, educational video. I see a lot of people asking on Twitter and talking about these SPVs, these special purpose vehicles to buy private shares of companies that look like maybe IPOing in the future. And what I did was this company that's been very active, that's working with Ripple, they're working with Coinbase and Robinhood and others, and also Uphold. They're very active in the space, and they have invited me to sit in on some of their investor panels. So over the last month, I've been sitting in on their investor meetings and getting to meet some really interesting people and occasionally been able to ask some questions. But what I wanted to do was, instead of trying to explain SPVs, because I am not a financial advisor and that is not in my wheelhouse, I've pieced together a couple of different videos to explain to you so that maybe you can best understand them. And then what I would recommend is, if you have any questions or if this is something that's for you, is reach out to these people. They're very nice. You can find them at linkto.com. It's linqto.com. They have an app on your phone. But anyway, they're very nice, very friendly. They're very helpful. One of the interesting things, I sat in on one of their meetings last night and actually got to do a little chit chat before the meeting started with Miguel Valles, which was really cool. But one of the things that is really neat is in each of these meetings, these investor meetings, and sometimes they have 300 accredited investors from around the world in these meetings, they literally have people who are from the XRP community who are invested in XRP who are also accredited investors that are actually talking about how they're invested in XRP and they're also invested in Ripple SPVs. So it's really neat to see these people on the platform and see how they kind of crossed over. Anyway, the purpose, as I said, of this video is informational and educational. I just wanted to try and get the best information I can find to get it explained, because I know it is a little bit confusing how it works. And I'm just going to let this rip, and then I'll probably do a little of my own summarization at the end. So let's go with it right now.
As individual investors, we don't usually get involved in pre-IPO unicorns, and you don't have access to them for your portfolio. We typically get shut out of this asset class because it's been a domain exclusively for large institutional investors. Linkto has been democratizing the secondary market space by making these investments affordable and accessible to the average investor with minimum investments as low as $10,000. So here today, we've got our own Joe Indoso, who's going to talk with us and discuss how you can engage in creating further diversification in your individual investment portfolios with unicorns. And also after that, and after our panel, we've got a great talk early this afternoon. First of all, Matthew will be back on after the panel. He's going to stick on and talk about blockchain co-investors. So you can think about investing in a blockchain fund of funds. And then after that, we've got Greg Kidd back, and Greg is going to be talking with a digital asset investor specifically about Ripple. Greg was first chief risk officer at Ripple, and he's going to come back and we're going to drill down very deep into XRP and Ripple in terms of Ripple as equity, not Ripple as its crypto XRP. So we got a lot of exciting things going on. Joe, welcome. Glad to have you back here today. How are you doing today?
Great. Although I'm absolutely intimidated after having heard Jesse and Lily. That was one of the most absolutely edifying and inspiring sessions I think we've had in our virtual conferences, Bill. And I think that's a really tough act to follow.
Yeah, I was just going to say exactly the same thing. I don't know if we need to just do a shuffle off to Buffalo here, but it's going to be difficult to follow that. But speaking about unicorns, just for the audience here, briefly, I think we all know what unicorns are, but maybe we start at the very beginning. What is a unicorn, and why are unicorns an important investment opportunity to evaluate?
So a unicorn is basically a private company that's achieved a valuation of $1 billion or more. And typically these are, as you might imagine, they're VC-funded tech companies. Why they're important is that in the last 20 years, these unicorns have grown into a huge asset class. Right? Today, there's about 472 of these companies around the world, and their aggregate value is 1.3 trillion or thereabouts. And that's huge. Also as important is that in those same 20 years, they've exhibited the fastest growth of any asset class in equities, and they've also achieved the highest returns. So from an investment perspective, that's super important. And it's the reason why more and more non-VC money is trying to get into these unicorns. I should say, too, because we have a whole bunch of people in our audience that maybe come from the crypto investing world, Bill, that when you look at these unicorns and you look at that aggregate valuation of 1.3 trillion, that's about 5 times the size of the crypto market today. Cryptos, while they've exhibited outside of equities a greater degree of return over the same 20-year period, what's different is that in that smaller crypto market, you also have a much higher degree of concentration, right? So even though you've got 5,000 or so cryptocurrencies today, the top 5 currencies in that market account for 83% of the total market value. So you have a lot less choice than you do in the unicorn asset class.
Good point. Good point. You know that we've been working a lot with getting some of the better unicorns in. We tend to specialize in the fintech side of the world and the crypto side of the world because that's what we know, blockchain and fintech. What unicorn investments are available currently on the LinkedIn platform?
We have 3 fintech unicorns on the platform today, Bill, and they're all U.S.-based unicorns. So we've got Ripple, which is the biggest of the 3. They're about 10 billion in value. And then we've got Robinhood and Coinbase, each of whom are about 8 billion in value today. And in the coming months, hopefully, we'll be able to add even more unicorns to the LinkedIn platform and give our investors more choice and more diversification opportunity.
Explain for the audience here just a bit how the Link2 platform works. How does it benefit investors and how does it benefit unicorns? I mean, there's 2 sides to this equation, right?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the investment platform that we talk about, it's a technology that Link2 built, and it's primarily a mobile app that's meant to be really simple and easy to use. You know, one of our board members at the time, Matthew Lamerrill, who you'll hear from later today, was very, very visionary in that respect. He wanted something that was going to be easy for you to do on your smartphone. And that's kind of astonishing because, if anything, private market securities like these unicorn investments are typically very difficult and very complicated to transact in. So we wanted to build something that was very easy and simple to use. So when you get on that mobile app, basically, you get a couple of benefits, from using it to buy unicorns. Number one, the entry price is really low, right? So this is an investment class where typically you're not going to be able to invest unless you write a minimum ticket of 100,000, and that's about the lowest that you're going to see. On our platform, you can invest as little as $10,000, and be able to get exposure to unicorns. The second thing, and this is super important, is that the transaction process in the real world outside of Link2 is very, very complicated for a whole bunch of reasons that, we probably don't have the time to get into. But the bottom line is you typically have to put your money in escrow. You've got to wait for a significant period of time for consents to be gotten from the unicorn company. And if those consents are not gotten, and there's a bunch of reasons why that might be the case, you'll end up actually not being able to buy the unicorn to begin with, right? On our platform, when you see an offering, you know that stock is going to be available, and you're not going to have to put your money in escrow. You'll be able to close immediately as long as you're able to qualify as an accredited investor. And the third benefit, and this is, I guess, super important too, is that since you're buying these unicorns indirectly through an SPV that we use at Link2 to aggregate all the small investor capital, the units of that SPV are actually tradable. So they're liquid. And that means that if for whatever reason, after you make your investment, you decide maybe there's been a family need that requires cash, that you need to cash in your investment, you can actually offer that investment to other investors on our platform and liquefy it, which wouldn't be the case if you had the unicorn stock directly, because then you'd be illiquid. So those are some real important benefits to the investors. And then the issuers, the unicorns, like us because, we make it really efficient, right, for the small ticket capital to flow onto their cap table. I mean, imagine if you're Ripple and you had to deal with thousands upon thousands of small investors. I mean, the cost of administering that, the legal liability, the administrative headache, and the fact that you'll probably at some point breach the SEC's limits on how many investors you can have as a private company. So we solve all those problems for the unicorn as well, while giving the sellers of the unicorn shares the ability to sell their shares in a very efficient way to small investors.
And so the space that you're talking about here, where we get it from, it's different from what we're used to with our small cap companies where they're doing primary raises the way they are today. Most of this investment comes in the secondary market. We're getting shares in that are acquired from early employees who may be looking to get a little liquidity for themselves while they're waiting for the IPO to happen. But that's not a new market. How does Link2 compare to companies like Forge and SharesPulse, now all one company, Forge, SharesPulse, or Equity Zen, or Manhattan Ventures, or some of the others that are dealing in the secondary market space?
Yeah. So all those guys, not to disparage any of them, but they were all founded basically with a very, very different customer base in mind. They were set up to serve the very largest institutions that like to buy these unicorn shares in the secondary market because maybe they weren't quite big enough or quite close enough to the management teams of the unicorns to be able to participate in the primary offerings, right? But because of that sort of big institution focus, their product and their offering is geared towards those big institutions. So the average ticket size is large, typically an average of 5 million and multiples of that, which is well beyond the reach of the small accredited investor. And then you've got an investment process bill that has all of those complications we talked about, right? That happen when you want to hold the stock directly. Big institutions can afford to go through the process and the expenses associated with it. And the risk of not being able to actually close a transaction. But if you're a small investor, you're never going to do that. You're never going to put $10,000 in an escrow account, go through the expense of having it escrowed, and then end up 90 or 120 days later with your trade reversed because the shares ended up not being transferable because the company didn't get consent, or because the shares got ROFR'd. So they're offerings, investment offerings that are meant for big institutions, not for the small investor. At Link2, we're entirely focused on meeting the needs and serving the small accredited investor.
And so on the other side, I'm sure a lot of people are interested. We're always interested in exit of these companies that we're talking about. Which one do you think is closest to an IPO?
Well, it's not so much what I think as much as that of the three unicorns we talked about, Bill, Ripple's the only one, right, that's publicly announced their intent to do an IPO within the 2020-2021 timeframe. So
what does Ripple do? What does Ripple do?
So Ripple's an interesting company. They started out by creating a blockchain that's called the XRP ledger. And they specifically engineered this decentralized ledger system in order to enable various types of transactions that require a very high volume, low latency processing, and with a big level, or a big security wrapper around it, right, to protect the transaction data. So that company, Ripple Labs, which is the Ripple Labs that we're offering on our platform. When they built that XRP ledger, they also decided to use it for a very specific use case that would benefit from all of those capabilities that they specifically engineered their blockchain for. And that use case basically is to process international payments, on the blockchain, right? They're able to do these international payments more quickly, in a much more inexpensive way than is currently being done by the legacy international payment systems that the big banks use. So that payment system is called RippleNet, and Ripple's been using that system. It's commercial. It's been adopted by over 300 financial institutions in over 40 countries around the world today, and that adoption continues to grow by the day.
So we have a number of crypto investors here today, and I'm sure a lot of them are already invested in XRP. What's the difference in investing in XRP versus the Ripple equity that we have on the Fluency platform?
Right. So when Ripple Labs built this XRP ledger, this blockchain, they also created a native cryptocurrency on it. And that's the XRP you're talking about, Bill. So XRP is something that Ripple uses when they run their transaction processes for the payment system. They use the cryptocurrency as a value transfer mechanism, and that allows these payment transactions to clear very rapidly and to settle very rapidly and at low cost on the RippleNet system. But what's happened to XRP is that it's also been listed, independent of its use on this payment system, it's been listed on a whole variety of crypto exchanges around the world. So investors can actually buy the cryptocurrency and effectively speculate on its future value, because the hunch is that as the use of this RippleNet payment system grows, the value of that cryptocurrency will also grow, right? And so think about it as being a commodity, XRP, with a life or a value independent of the system, and then Ripple Labs is using that cryptocurrency specifically as a component of this payment system and creating economic value through that.
Okay, excellent, Joe. And we do have some more information coming up after, I think it's at 1:45 today. The Digital Asset Investor is here, a tremendous YouTube influencer, and he's going to be interviewing Greg Kidd directly. Greg was first Chief Risk Officer at Ripple Labs.
Okay, so that was the first clip I wanted to show you. Now, I'm going to try and do the best I can with the sound, guys, but just know these are not my videos. I tried to get originals. I just couldn't get them fast enough. So I'm trying to make the use of other videos that they have released, and I apologize if the audio isn't fantastic, because I know people will comment about that. But anyway, there's another clip now that explains something very important that I wanted to jump to in a video that was done just 2 days ago. So listen up on this one.
We also have Mr. BXRP and Digital Perspectives here. Do you have any questions of Joe? So I don't know that I see any more questions. Here comes Nick. Mr. BXRP, would you like to ask a question, Joe?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate it very much. One of the questions I wanted to ask is when you change over the platform and your users are able to buy an SPV with their cryptocurrency, I assume there's a tax event that occurs when they go from their cryptocurrency to the SPV. Would that be correct?
Bill, you want to take that?
Yes, sure. So that gets handled through the exchange and through Uphold. It's the same.
And just let me stop for a second. The reason why I asked this question is they had just announced that on their platform in the next couple of weeks, they're joining forces with Uphold to where users will be able to use their crypto to buy SPVs. So that's the reason why I decided to ask this question. I honestly, the truth is, I was watching this panel, and I didn't know they were going to even ask me to ask a question. But the truth is, it was the first question that came across my mind was, would there be a tax event? So essentially, you'll be able to take funds from Uphold and and buy SPVs with them. And just to kind of put it together in your mind and connect the dots, look, Greg Kidd is an investor in Uphold. Greg Kidd is an investor in Link2. Greg Kidd is an investor in Ripple. Greg Kidd is an investor in Robinhood. Greg Kidd is an investor in Coinbase. Guys, that's why all of these companies are on this platform, and that's why that this company is getting all of these big people in the crypto world to join their platform and do interviews and all kinds of neat stuff, is because it's just kind of all interwound together. But anyway, I'm going to continue to play this, and I want you to hear an explanation from Joe about the SPV toward the end.
You use their wallet to purchase anything using their wallet, and I can't attest to whether there is a tax event or not, because there may not be a tax event. But if that tax event happens, it's handled at the Uphold level. They are the agent. They will hold the account, and they do all the transferring or all the exchange rate. Because we're working with them internally, directly in the platform, there are no transaction fees if it's done through Link2 to Uphold, whereas with other outside companies there would be transaction fees. But relating to FX and transfers and currency exchanges, basically what we're doing at Link2, we still work with the old-fashioned US dollar. So the money comes in through wherever it comes in, and then it comes into our account as USD.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to say, Bill, was for the people watching this video, is for those that aren't accredited investors and maybe don't qualify today to invest in an SPV product, that doesn't mean they're not going to qualify at some point in the future. So they should be keeping an eye on the product that you guys carry, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Not only that they may qualify in the future with the existing regs, but they might find in a very short period of time that the regs get, it's already happening at like the SEC level. I was at a conference in Austin, Texas, maybe a year and a half ago, where Jake Clayton was talking about the fact that he doesn't even believe that people should not be able to buy late stage unicorns when they can buy companies like Apple. Since then, the SEC has already come out with changes in regulations to broaden the perspective of who can be an accredited investor. And we're seeing the lines blurring. So it may be that within a few years, retail investment will be available in this market as well. So just keep an eye on that. For now, we have to make sure that everyone is an accredited investor. But it's not that difficult to be an accredited investor. And even that term, a lot of people don't understand. There are approximately 1 million people currently who are invested in private securities in the world, either through funds or individually. But there are 45 million people who meet the regulations to be able to do it. They just don't know that they meet the regulation. I mean, the average income at Facebook is $242,000. You only need to make $200,000 a year to be accredited. And you only need $1 million net worth to be accredited. It's not that difficult to be considered an accredited investor. So you should look at the regs carefully and see what you have, and we'll help you with that. If you come in and make a transaction, our people will get in touch with you and do our best to see if we can prove that you are accredited. We do need that proof in order to meet SEC and FINRA regulations, but we're on your side to try to help you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Bill.
A question from Bing, who is a long-time Fred's Forum member, also an investor in Link2. If a firm goes public, does that trigger a capital gains event by converting the units to shares, even if someone continues to hold the IPO shares?
So nobody actually holds the shares per se, except for the investment vehicle that Link2 manages. So we've got the investment vehicle that sits on the cap table of the issuing company, and then you as an investor own membership units. So you're a part owner along with the other investors in that investment vehicle. When the company has a liquidity event like an IPO, we are subject as an insider and a shareholder to whatever the lockup period is, right, that's imposed on all the shareholders at the time of the public offering. But once that lockup period expires, we would sell those shares into the market and we would distribute all the cash proceeds back to the owners of the investment vehicle, to all of our investors. So to answer your question on the gains, depending on when you bought or made your investment, you would be subject to capital gains or ordinary income tax if you had just invested, under that 12-month holding period requirement for a gain. But in either case, what you would receive is you'd receive your proceeds in cash rather than in kind. If at that point you wanted to remain long on that stock, say it's Ripple, and you wanted to remain long on Ripple, you take the cash proceeds and then you go buy Ripple in the public market. So,
Thank you, Joe. And DAI, if you
So I hope you guys found that helpful. I would love at some point to do an interview with Joe. He really knows his stuff, and he's very passionate about cryptocurrency and specifically XRP. So I would love to talk to him about that, and also about linked to one of the things he just said was if there is a liquidity event like an IPO, that they would sell the shares because the shares are actually owned by the fund once their lockout period is over. So the interesting thing that I learned is that if you buy one of these SPVs, it doesn't later on automatically turn into permanent stock. So at some point they're going to cash it out, and then if you wanted stock in the long term, you'd have to go ahead and rebuy it. That's my understanding, but I would strongly suggest that you contact them or you speak to your advisor to get your understanding of it. But that's kind of what I got out of it. And as I said, I do hope that maybe in the future I can do a detailed conversation with Joe about that and get a better understanding of it. But I think this is an interesting space. I think that if people do as well in their cryptocurrency investments as they hope they will, that these types of investments may be something that people want to get involved with. That's why I'm very interested in them and wanting to learn more and more about them. And I just hope that you guys found this valuable and maybe you feel the same way as I do. Anyway, that's it. I appreciate you watching my video. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an SPV expert, and I'm not a crypto expert. These are my opinions only. Don't make any financial decisions based on anything I say. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Hey, please like and subscribe if you would to my channel, and hit the notifications button, and share my videos with anybody who you think might enjoy them, and have a fantastic day. Thank you.